Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Israeli Ministry of Tourism webinar, Crisis Management, Technology, and Future Trends. I'm very happy to have with me here our director in the UK, Sharon, Itai Green, and Eran Ketter that will soon share with you their vision. It's funny because usually the most intimate place in your home is the bedroom, and right now, despite the quarantine, we are speaking from the bedrooms constantly, so it's kind of an ironic issue. For the ones who don't know me, my name is Gal Khana, and I am our director in Canada. And this webinar is actually a joint initiative of all of our offices abroad. So we have here participants from the US, from Canada, from UK, Israel, and from many other countries. And it's only one out of many creative activities that we are trying to do right now in order to keep the engagement with you, with the industry, and to keep providing some value to you despite the challenge that we are facing. Israel was, is, and always will be probably the best destination there is for everyone. So we are looking forward to welcome you later. As I mentioned, we are thrilled to have here with us Eran Ketter and Itai Green that will share with us their predictions about the post-corona world, how technology can and will shape the industry after the corona, and how you can benefit from those together. Crises come and go, and management are the things that make the difference. Warren Buffett once said that predicting rain doesn't help, building ark does. And it reminds me of a story which I learned in my previous studies about two brothers in the 60s who wanted to open a pizza place. And they went and they had a great recipe. They had a brilliant business model, but in every place that they went, Pizza Hut was already established, and in every cornerstone, there was a Pizza Hut restaurant. So they couldn't find a place to go, and they couldn't find a city center to sell their products. And they were pretty despair, and they need to make a decision whether they are going off the competition or they are starting something new. And they understood that in the manner of location, they will always lose to Pizza Hut, so they need to come with something else. So they took the location out of the equation. They invented deliveries. They bring in the pizza to your place, to your home, to your perfect place to eat, and then Pizza Hut main strength was irrelevant anymore. So like Domino's, we all can focus on utilize this time to take a step back, to look at the big picture, to think how we can utilize this time to better ourselves, to improve our business, and to reflect on the things that we took for granted for so many years. And it's an opportunity to reevaluate all of our things that we are doing in the day-to-day. So without further ado, I'm more than happy to invite Eran Ketter to share with us his thoughts about the future. Eran, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Gal, and thank you for this kind invitation to share how the world might look like in the day post-COVID-19. But before we go into tomorrow, let's have a quick look at today and try to examine with a tourism eye what are the main things we're seeing today. And we're talking about a global crisis, which is both an economic crisis and a health crisis and a tourism crisis. And these crises have a major effects on both supply and demand in tourism. If we're talking about supply, so first of all, we're talking about the aviation industry, which that's been very, very badly hit. There are over 60 airlines that completely 100% grounded their activities. I think one of the recent airlines to join is EasyJet, one of the leading low-cost carriers in Europe. And it is estimated that over 90% of regular scheduled passenger flights have been rescheduled or completely off the schedule, resulting from the situation. Secondly, the hospitality sector, according to recent data by STR, So in the accommodation, in hospitality, now in the United States, bookings are about, or bookings are now 60% down. In UK, booking are about 70% down, and in Italy, booking are 96% down. In Italy, about 96% of hotels have closed their gates. This, of course, is a temporary situation, and we look forward for this to change in the coming weeks. That's on the supply side. And on the demand side, we see two major changes. One of them has to do with the global economy. The IMF recently announced that it's seeing a global, or it recognized that the world is entering a global recession, and that's definitely going to affect spending on tourism. We definitely hope to see a V-shaped recovery. That recovery would be within 2020 by the third quarter, or the latest by the fourth quarter. By the way, according to IATA prediction, to the International Aviation Transportation Association, they are predicting that in the fourth quarter, in the last quarter of 2020, global aviation gonna be down only by 10%, comparing to the last quarter of 2019. So they're being quite optimistic regarding recovery. And that's, of course, an economic thing. And the second thing has to do with consumers' confidence. Will people be willing to go on a cruise ship or enter an airplane where they cannot practice social distancing in the near future? And that's definitely a question. But we see how this confidence somehow remains as people still make future bookings on a much lower extent, but we still future bookings for Christmas of next year, Christmas in December 2020. So people are still eager to travel. And we also need to remember that not all consumers respond similarly to crises or to hazards. And as people are younger in age, people who are male, who are more educated and have more travel experience, so these audience are willing to travel more and to take the risk. So that's all, and that also would be one of the first audience as regarding demographics who would go back to traveling. So these are some of the major things we're seeing today. But our real question is not regarding today, because we all read about what's happening today. It's about how the world of tourism would look like tomorrow. And although Israel is a very magical country, we don't have here any magic balls that show us how the future is going to look like. But these are a type of very simple prediction that's based on what we've seen in past crises or what we're seeing in other parts of the world, that from it we can come to some out of conclusion regarding the world as of tomorrow. Let's start from these pictures from Israel, but let's start from China. In China, the quarantine has removed. China is still pretty much sealed regarding the international borders. If you want to go into China, you still have to go through medical checkups and a certain amount of time to spend a certain amount of time in quarantine. But in China, 87% of hotels are back to operation. Still in relatively low occupancy, but they're open. Over 1,000 tourism attractions are now open and available. And we see how the domestic tourism grows. So after people spend a few weeks in quarantine, they're looking forward to go outside, to breathe fresh air, to enjoy the sun, in the Northern Hemisphere. And we expect that this would be the first segment to grow both in Israel and also in other markets. So slowly more and more countries will get over the COVID-19 crisis, and they manage to isolate the people who are infected, and then you see the quarantine being removed, and slowly domestic tourism will go back, and then also outbound travel and inbound travel. We need to also remember that in China, and that also might be the case for other destinations, travel is still with some restrictions. So people are asked not to gather in large groups. People are asked to use face masks. Their body temperature is being checked when they are entering hotels or tourism sites. So if you're listening to this webinar and you're managing a tourism site, tourism attraction, hotel, so you would be required probably in the next coming months to reopen your site under certain restrictions. We should already start to think about these restrictions and how to manage tourism under these conditions. Okay, so that's being first. Secondly, and that's maybe a very good news for Israel or to people who deal with tourism development in Israel, not all products and motivation gonna bounce back on the same rate. And we've seen from past crises that visitor motivation that are more solid, which are mainly three, which is business travel, VFR, visit friends and relatives, which is a huge market in Israel, and pilgrimage tourism, religious tourism, are three top motivation in post-crisis time. In this time, people tend to have less affinity to travel, and they are being more concerned regarding the decision-making of that, except for the three audience people in the business sector. They are obliged to go by their work. They also tend to be very frequent travelers, so they feel very comfortable with all kinds of situation. That's first. Secondly, the VFR market, it's a huge market for Israel, and we've seen it also in the past. In 2003, following the second Palestinian uprising crisis, we have seen that VFR tourism has grown to be 42% of inbound travel to Israel, and there are many Israelis or people who have family in Israel living both in the United States and Canada and also in the UK for UK participants. So we're definitely going to see this audience bouncing back very, very fast. And lastly, we've seen that in this time of crisis, people reconnect with their religious feelings, and following that, they want to go and visit the holy places, either for Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, that can be found in Israel. And they go, and this picture, in case you haven't been yet, was taken in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Number three, the global tourism map, as we know it these days, is going to change. If we were looking at ranking of top source market and top tourism destination in the last 5 years or so, we more or less saw the same destinations who were leading both lists. And the top tourism destinations in the world, the most popular ones, are France and Spain and the US and China and Italy. And of course, these top five not going to look the same in the year 2020. Okay, and we're going to see new destinations. Hopefully, Israel would be one of the destinations that, resulting from the very strict quarantine regulation, quarantine measures that we're taking, or health measures that we're taking, would be a country that would recover from the COVID-19 crisis very fast, and will raise the potential it has to become a stronger player in international markets. So that's regarding destination countries, and also regarding source audiences, where China is a huge market, and we see all kinds of changes happening there, with borders still not being open up. The US is now entering, the US, the UK, Germany, which all are very big source market, and now making more initial steps into the world of quarantine and COVID-19, and we'll have to closely follow how both health issues and economic issues in these countries play out to determine which role they would play in the tourism arena of the post-COVID-19 tourism. we do need to remember that destinations that will have shorter quarantine will be less affected economically, so they also are expected to rebound faster into the world of tourism. And it's time to diversify your strategy as a tourism business or as an operator or as a tour agent to work with both source audiences and with more destination regions in order to be able to absorb this type of change of reshuffle the deck of cards in the world of tourism that we were used to see in a very certain way for many, many years. One of the things we're seeing these days is that when people are on quarantine, they spend significantly much time online. The Facebook group, which includes Facebook and WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Instagram, of course, are reporting on a huge increase in the amount of traffic they are seeing on their apps. With having that, okay, so there is more interest, and on the other side, we see that the amount of advertisers is going down. So tourism businesses finally, after very, very long years, enjoying a growth in their organic exposure. So as people are spending more time digital, it's an opportunity for us to enhance our digital exposure and to drive more people, such as the way Barcelona is doing in this slide, taking from their Instagram account, drive more people to join into our funnel and to show interest in our destination. We also have to remember that while in Europe we have the data that in 2019 still half of the travel purchases were done offline, okay, it was half and half in 2019, as now people are stuck at home and are pretty much obliged to conduct all their shopping and all their consumption to be done via the online. So we expect to see increase in digital activity among different consumer segments, even consumer segments that were less digital in the past. So if you're not yet fully operational on digital or not working well enough on mobile mode, so that's the COVID-19 is actually an opportunity to step back, rebuild your digital infrastructure, and be ready for the day after, which is definitely going to be more digital than the day before. Our fifth and last prediction / conclusion for the day after has to do with the aviation industry. According to a recent IATA report, most airlines have a cash flow that will help them to last only for 2 months. While we see more and more countries, including Israel and the United States and other countries, that invest in protecting their legacy airlines against a stage of collapse, we're not sure that all airlines going to survive and going to be with us on the post-corona travel day, specifically low-cost carriers who tend to work in an environment that have more risks, are more prone to going bankrupt. And that might again change the world tourism behavior. We can look at the case of Iceland. In the year 2017, Iceland enjoyed 24% of tourism growth, and in 2018, their low-cost carriers, wow, went bankrupt. And in 2019, we saw how it changed from going 24% up to going 14% down, a huge shift in the trend of tourism resulting from the change in airline connectivity. So we have to watch out very closely on change in aviation as it was changed connectivity and the map of destination. And also we have to remember that when governments are bailing out airlines or aviation companies, they are not spending money, but they're actually investing money in future tourism, investing money in the recovery, not only of tourism, but also of regular life, of commerce and other fields of the community. So these are my top 5 conclusions for the day, the post-corona day. I'll be very happy to get any questions in case you have one.